What is going on, everyone? And we are back. I've got a pretty cool topic to talk to you about today. I actually saw a gentleman present on this topic at NFT NYC, and I think that it was probably one of the best speaking things that happened there, because it was such a oddly satisfying and like clarifying fact that went into a lot more of like the psychological components of NFTs, right? And like why do people choose to go get them? What is driving people to go spend all this money on digital goods? I think that's like a pretty common thread question that I get all the time. And this was based off a white paper. So I'm going to kind of cover through what the white paper says and like what some of the talking points were. And this is really to give you a idea when you're thinking about a number of different things, but when you're thinking about, if you're thinking about creating a new NFT marketplace, if you're thinking about doing a drop on your own, if you are just here because you wonder why in the hell are people spending money on these, well, I've got some answers for you. So let's get into it. All right, so the white paper is available for free here. I will be putting the link in the description below, so you can go through and read through it all on your own. It's a great read. I suggest everyone go do it, because knowledge is power and getting more is always better. But I kind of put it down into a deck here so that we can easily kind of cover the main points. And this is my like distillation of the value add behind it, right? And really like the TLDR of the paper itself. And so I like to do these videos because, again, not everyone has time in their day to go read through these white papers, but still the concepts and everything behind them are extremely critical. So again, these decks and everything are meant to kind of give you what's there, and then we can you can dig in more on your own time or reach out if you have any questions. So the title of it, Materializing Digital Collecting, an extended view of digital materiality. So this is what you should know and why you should care. All right, so here's the screenshot of the paper to show you that it's real, but I already did. So the question that's kind of, posed in this is that, if in this paper it was, I think, pre-NFTs, right? But the whole idea is that, if digital objects are abundant and ubiquitous, then like why should consumers pay for them? Or like why do they hold value? Again, this comes back to the argument of like NFTs. I can just go and copy and paste them. Like, yes, of course you can, but they are still have a uniqueness to them, which gives them a ton of power. So again, I think this went a little bit pre that, but a lot of the mechanics that are in this paper, and I can't stress this enough, a lot of the mechanics that are in this paper are incredibly relevant. And if you actually take them and apply them to the successful NFTs like NBA Top Shots and stuff like that, you can be like, oh my God, that's totally true. But the thing that's also cool is that you can take these and apply them to your own products and get a lot of value and hopefully a higher probability of success when doing your launch. So I think the first thing to do is really kind of define what we mean by collecting. So, they in the paper say that collecting is actively seeking or acquiring things removed from ordinary use and perceived as a set of non-identical objects or experiences. And I think that's like a pretty interesting thread, the experiences part that we'll get to in a little bit more. But it's this idea that the attachment that people get to items while they're collecting is pretty powerful. The characteristics of a collection. So how do we define the characteristics that that would say something as a collection versus just say like a group of objects? Is that that the collection itself, the value of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That what is in that collection, there's a selective quality on why those items are included in that collection. And that we try to avoid duplication of them. And that what's like kind of odd is that really like a lot of times things that are collected, they're not like collected for what they were functionally designed for. Like, yes, everyone could point to baseball cards and say, yes, that's what they're meant to do. But I mean, at the same point, you could like point to Pokemon cards and say, really, their functional utility was to play a game. But, I would say the large majority actually collect versus playing the game, which is kind of an interesting thing. So it makes us ask, how can digital objects create pleasurable collecting experiences? So collecting is in and of itself an experience. That is why people go after it. That idea that the hunt is really 90% of it, right? And so a lot of these studies show that actually the act of searching and acquiring it releases more dopamine stuff than the act of actually owning it. So really that journey to get the item and that experience to get it is why people collect. And this really breaks down into two things. So there's two large, I guess, are two central pillars of like why people collect, and why people would go pay exorbitant amounts of value for things that others may perceive as like completely irrelevant. Like why do some antiques hold so much value when at the end of the day someone could look at it and be like, you know what, that's just a teapot. But to someone that might be the final thing in their collection. They've been searching years to get it, so therefore the value's higher. And so that's broken down into two things. So elusiveness is basically like how hard it is to find that object, or what is the difficulty to not just find but also to acquire, and then the authenticity. So how do you see, or how do you have a form of connection to whatever that object is, right? And again, I want to keep this framed in the context of like NFTs, right? Because that's where we are, and that's really my whole thing, right? And so how when we're designing a new NFT experience or marketplace or game or drop, how can you build in these characteristics of elusiveness and authenticity? Because if you do, your probability of really engaging the market and driving up that value is going to be substantially higher. All right, so on the elusiveness side, it's this pretty interesting definition of this thing that they call distance. So distance is the time between an individual becomes aware of an object and the time that they actually acquire it. So the time that you know a new CryptoPunk is available versus how long it takes you to actually acquire. And that distance of how long it takes you to acquire it could encompass a lot of different things. That distance is different for everyone. So it could be, how long will it take me to go actually save up X amount of money in order to acquire that CryptoPunk? What does it mean if I maybe have to go find it or something of that nature? But distance and elusiveness is everything. If your distance is too long, then you actually get a drop off of people trying to collect, because it just becomes insurmountable. Like, people can't get there. So when you're tailoring these experiences and building these mechanics into your product, you need to understand what should that distance be. Like how long should it take people to acquire the different objects on this. And because at the end of the day is that, when there's no distance, when there's instant gratification, if there's no delay in gratification, there's no desire. So distance builds desire. So that gap of when I know it's available versus when I acquire it is desire. And so that you can change the level of desire by playing with the distance between those 2 points. And all right, well, you're probably saying, Corey, that's cool, bro. But exactly how do we, create distance? Like, what does distance mean? So there's really kind of like 4 main ones that are outlined, and I think that any great platform has done these all really well. That's not to say that there isn't more, but these are like really the four main ones, right? So you've got quantity, time, location, and skill. And so, quantity based is basically rarity, right? So if there's an infinite amount, then there's not a quantity shortage, then they're not really desirable, right? Because everyone has them. Like, why would we go get it? The second is time. So if things are only available within certain windows, that can help create that distance, because then that means that people need to be available at that point in time. And if you miss that window, then you don't get it. And so some of the things that you can do, especially with NFTs, is do like unannounced drops. This makes people stay constantly engaged and vigilant on your platform. This means that they are constantly looking at it, constantly staying aware, saying that, okay, I need to check back in because I don't want to miss this. And that feeling of I don't want to miss this can be linked to that distance or that desire state. Location-based scarcity. This is where you actually have to physically be in a location or go to something in order to get it. I've seen these already at like the NFT conferences. So you have to go to the conference or register for the conference to actually obtain the NFTs. And this is really cool because unless you were there at that point in time, you won't be able to obtain that NFT. And also there's this weird temporal oh God, I can't remember what it's called now, temporal something, but basically where you create this like cognitive association to when you see this NFT, it takes you back to where that location and when you got that, when you obtained that object. And that kind of connection for a lot of people is a very strong thing for collecting. And it's a very strong thing to get an object and to actually keep it. So doing that's really, really important and a great kind of lever to use in this. Great example, Pokemon Go. There was I think the whole time when there was, like a ton of people running around Central Park trying to get one at like midnight, trying to get one elusive Pokemon, right? So everyone's there because they want to get it, but it has to be in a location. The last one is the concept of skill-based. So this really comes up a lot in games and things like that, is that, if you create some level, like if you have to have some skill in whatever way to get that, that can help drive that distance, right? To drive that desire to obtain the objects for their collection. And that one I think is pretty interesting, especially like from what we've seen. Now I know that like some of the NFT marketplaces and things will do like challenges where you've got to obtain certain NFTs, and if you obtain these 5 NFTs, then you unlock a new one, right? That kind of like pulls on multiple of these different points around how do you create scarcity that drives elusiveness, which again drives desire. And it's like the funny part, there's a great example of sometimes like even in games and some of the top game creators, they don't know what's going to become super valuable. So Ultima Online, they which is a PC game, they put in these like small amounts of like horse shit everywhere, like horse dung, to just kind of give ambiance and like add realism to like the stables. But since the horses themselves within the game weren't designed to actually create more horse dung, there was a finite set amount of horse dung put in when the game was created, and no more was ever added. Is that there's basically like one piece of horse dung to every 30,000 players, and this turned into like a huge thing for players in the game, where they were actually trading massive amounts of currency for this horse dung, which is kind of a crazy example, but I mean it totally makes sense, right? Like there's these things that they put out, they're in a finite supply, they drive like the quantity based scarcity. They're available early in the game, so the people that were on early on kind of gobbled them up, so they hit the time scarcity. They were location based, they were only in certain stables within the game, and then that probably ties in the skill base, but the fact that it kind of hit all 4 of these points shot it to the moon. So again, when you're thinking about creating stuff for your NFT marketplace or creating stuff for your ecosystem, think about how these characteristics can apply to it. The next one is authenticity. So we've got elusiveness and we've got authenticity. Now, so what authenticity means, the definition is that it's typically used to describe something that is perceived as a real thing or the original, as opposed to a copy or an imitation. But in my connection to what they meant in authenticity in this is that really authenticity is how do you, as a person, connect to that object that you are desiring? Like what is that connection point? And why is that connection point there for you? And that being able to create that connection drives value in those objects, right? And so they go in that authenticity is kind of driven by 2 things: iconic and indexical. That's one word here. Indexical cues can influence perceptions of authenticity. So it's kind of a mouthful, but I'll give you a breakdown on what it is. So it's really kind of 4 things that they outline can help drive authenticity. So again, as we're thinking about creating digital goods in the digital world, we have to think about this stuff when we're designing it, when we're designing the experiences, when we're designing all of these items, because it becomes extremely important in the long run for the longevity, for the adoption rate, for the engagement of what you're building. And so indexical is when something is associated with and thus signify people, places, times, and events. This drives uniqueness. So if you can, again, this comes back to a lot of the location-based stuff on the elusiveness, is that if people are acquiring your items, and they can tie it to a point in time and an emotion and a feel that makes that item even more unique. So again, I think, the NFT drops at the conferences where you have to be there, you have to be at this after party at that point in time in order to get it. When I look at some of the ones I have, I think back, I'm like, oh my God, that after party was great. I met some really, really cool people, had some great conversations, and that for me makes the value of that higher. And therefore, my need to go acquire another one means that I connect that to it. Iconic connection. This is when an object's physical, I'll read it so I don't mess it up, but a physical manifestation resembles something that is indexically authentic. So this is when something basically looks like the original. And so again, you could say, well, this is copying, but even these iconic items are still satisfying to collect, because people regardless will still have a level of connection to that item. Like for instance, I've like a replica guitar, right? So I could never own one of my favorite guitarists' guitar, but I might be able to buy like a replica of that, and for me that is very high value, right? And even on the secondary market where other fans of this artist, there's a market for it. There's still a market for it. It's not a copy, because again, it creates that psychological and almost physical emotional connection to these items, right? And in collecting, that is everything, right? So NBA Top Shots is another great example. Someone might go buy an NFT moment for more than asking price because they were at that game with their son, and for them that was a super important moment, and therefore like they don't care what it costs, they want to go own it. So that's that idea of being able to collect to like time and space and feeling and emotion and bringing that all in. So it's more than just a video clip. It's an actual experience that people can tie to. Historical connections, another great one. So this one, again, this one kind of got me at first, but historical connection is not like this is a representation of something that happened forever ago. Really what they mean is like historically is like the biography of an object. So it's the object's distinct history that it imbues with indexical meanings as the item becomes associated with people, places, times, and events. It's really more being able to see where the collectible item came from, right? So having a pen, right, that came about because it was, I don't know, Satoshi's pen that he originally wrote the first draft of the Bitcoin white paper with, seeing that chain of custody, right, and seeing the history and the people that it had transferred through, can instill a lot of value. So when you're designing a marketplace or designing an experience or designing a platform for your users, be cognizant that people actually do care to see where these items came from, because again, we're not just creating new stuff in the digital, we're creating we're amplifying emotions and experiences that we all are accustomed to, and it becomes very instinctual for us. So we have to be very responsible in how we do that. And historical is a great one. The last one, I think this one is actually super, super, super cool, is this idea of like patina, right? So as things change hands, as things evolve, as time goes on, things get worn and torn as they change hands, and being able to like hold and see that little bit of patina or age, right, drives back to this, this biography of an object. And that, that being able to know that this thing has been around, right, helps signify the authenticity of it. And then, can even drive into the scarcity and elusiveness side of things. So, what's really cool, and it might be being done in some NFT projects already, but this idea that, that the NFTs actually degrade over time, and that the longer that you hold one, the faster rate of decay is. So it's actually incentivizes people to trade them, because as they trade hands, it will basically, reset the half-life or something like that, and allow them to live longer. So it actually, embodies this concept of community and trading, and not just buying to hodl, right? So that's I think that one's really cool. The other cool idea I thought was that, is that maybe something does, as it trades hands, it starts to degrade. So you find these NFTs that are like almost gone, but they have the highest value because they've been traded the most times, right? And therefore contain the most the most biography of the object itself, and being able to see that is really, really cool. And that is it. So that again is, this kind of idea on materializing digital collecting, an extended view of digital materiality. So I invite everyone to go read the white paper, because it's got some really, really great topics. And once again, I can't reinforce this enough, is if you're looking to do an NFT drop, if you're looking to launch any of these platforms yourself, you really need to think about the bigger picture and put a lot more emphasis on the mechanics behind how your users are going to, respect the objects that are in the space itself. Because if not, then the experience isn't going to be there. And the projects that have been super successful have really hit a lot of these, but there's still, it's still blue ocean as far as features and things that go. So it's up to you to figure it out. I think that there's going to be some fantastic new ideas coming down the pipe, and I can't wait to see what they are. So if you ever have any questions or anything, please reach out. You know where to hit us. You can subscribe below, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Keith.